Well,
Tell us about the very first Emily's Run.
It was about 1976 or something. I'm not sure of the date, but I had become a runner. I was a new runner at that time. Prior to that, I had been aspired to be a professional golfer. But I became a runner, running through the streets of Detroit with my partner at the time, Herb Squires. Pooh is what I called him. And we thought the streets were we used to say the streets of Detroit are the best recreational asset we have. We need to use them more. And there had been no runs in the streets of Detroit. So I went up to WJR and was promoting that we were going to have a run. And when I got back, the police chief or assistant police chief Jim Bannon had a car waiting for me, and they took me up to his office and they said, "We just heard you promoting a run in the streets of Detroit." "No, we don't have a provision for runs in the streets of Detroit. You need to go to Belle Isle." And I was like, "No, the whole idea is we want people to know it's safe to run in the streets of Detroit. We want them to come down and see that recreation can be had." And after about an hour of some tears and my coaxing him, he said, "Okay, let's see if we can make this happen." So that's how the first run started, and that was kind of the inspiration for the Turkey Trot, Detroit Free Press Marathon, things like that.
That's really interesting that they weren't going to let you do it.
No, because nobody had really done something like that. They actually gave us a parade permit.
A parade?
Yeah, that's how we got the first run off the ground.
I love it. So the first run you had upwards of 100 runners, and it grew. Tell us about some of the promoting that you did to help that run grow.
Well, it was always guerrilla marketing. First of all, we didn't aim at the hardcore runners. We knew they would show up. What we wanted was people who didn't come downtown Detroit, or who did come downtown Detroit, both types of people. And maybe they were walkers, maybe they were softball players, maybe they had never run in a run, because back in the 70s, not everybody had run in a run. It wasn't, you didn't have runs every weekend like we do now. So our whole thing was just to convince people, if you come down, whether you walk it or you run it, come down and let us take you through the city streets. We're going to go through Greektown. We're going to go down by the river front. At the time, it wasn't Riverwalk. It was pretty rough roads, and it was the Soup Kitchen Saloon, the Woodbridge Tavern, the Rhinoceros. There were bars and restaurants down there that we all frequented, but it wasn't quite like the Riverwalk is now. It wasn't anything like that. We went through, one of our runs went through Mexican Town. One of them started on the roof of Cobo Hall and went through on the circular start, and it went through Tiger Stadium, the only run that I know of that went through Tiger Stadium. We started that race actually by having the Detroit Police Department flew over the start of the race, and two of the repelling policemen that were on the repelling team, they came out of the helicopter and they dropped the American and Canadian flag, and that's how we started that race. So really, it was always guerrilla marketing, just going after, we would print 300,000 flyers and hand them out everywhere we went, because that's how you had to get people. It was before internet, it was before social media, it was one-on-one, it was going out to other races, it was going to people's softball games, giving our friends, I would say our friends and supporters in Michigan Runner, put us on the map, no question.
One of the things that's kind of interesting is the Emily's Runs in Detroit started to grow just about the same time the Michigan Runner itself was launched, which was started because nobody knew how to find the races unless you went to a store and picked up a flyer.
That's how much people don't remember what was happening before internet.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like how do I find out where this great run is? And one of my fun conversations with Art McCafferty, who founded the Michigan Runner, was he was running the Toronto Marathon, and there's this huge banner, a flyover with an airplane that said, "Say nice things about Detroit." in Toronto, for heaven's sake.
Well, we did that a lot of places. That's part of the guerrilla marketing. And speaking of Art McCafferty, I mean, what a pioneer Art was when he started Michigan Runner, because none of us would have gotten our runs on the map. I also have to say WJR was a tremendous supporter of ours at the time. J.P. McCarthy, Warren Pierce, everybody at WJR. They even came down and they broadcast from the race, and that's a big audience. Yeah, so there were a lot of people that were supporters, but I would have to say, every community gave us support. From downriver, there was a big contingent that would come up and help us. They would volunteer with us. The Detroit Police Department, the Fire Department. Once we got the first couple of runs going and people saw the happiness that was created and displayed because of stories of Michigan Runner and things like that, they really got behind, this is a wonderful way to get people to come into the streets of Detroit. And I'm forever grateful. And, with the passage of time, I'm even more grateful than I used to be with the kind of support we got from all the communities throughout metropolitan Detroit. We weren't aiming for people just in the city of Detroit. We were trying to get people who didn't come down into the city. One of the biggest things we would hear was from young people. They would say, oh, my parents would be so upset with me if they knew I was down in Detroit today, running in your run. And then, because they had we're told, don't go down into Detroit. And then the next year they would come with their parents. So that was really fun, that everybody became an ambassador for what we were doing. And it was just that word of mouth, that tremendous support throughout all the communities that did it. It wasn't a one-man or two-man show. It was people.
Well, you did so many interesting things with this guerrilla marketing. There was a guy named Christian Rasmussen, rest in peace, Christian Rasmussen. He just passed away with brain cancer a month or two ago. But I had been curating. Recently, I had all the 3/4-inch video that I had been storing in a locker for many, many years. I finally had it digitized. And one of the first things I found was video of Christian, who dressed up as the spirit of Detroit, painted his whole body silver. And I reached out and found Christian. And on the day that I was able to reach out and find him back in April, he was going in the next day for a stem cell transplant for his brain cancer. But the beauty of it was he was able to see the video. His sons who had heard many stories about it, saw a lot of the pictures I sent to Chris, and we kept in touch while he was up at U of M, and they were able to see the video. And the beauty of that is their sons had made a short movie called Famous in Michigan, and it was about Christian being an artist and how he encouraged his sons to do what they wanted to do in life. And Christian had a relapse from a little break where he didn't have, his cancer was in remission. So he was the star in this short movie. They wrapped it up. They got it entered into the Detroit Free Press, the Cinematopia Film Festival, and they won the Audience Choice Award about a few weeks before Christian passed away. So it was pretty a sentimental thing for Christian to see that happen with his sons, produce the movie where they were talking about how wonderful their father had been raising them to do what they wanted to do, which was to be filmmakers and photographers. And so that was neat. So Christian, the pictures of Christian as the spirit of Detroit. He would lead the conga lines. The two of us would lead these long conga lines up Washington Boulevard and through the crowd, and people got into it. It was magic. The costumes that people wore. IBM came with a whole group of people. I still have the picture. IBM and costumes in the same sentence?
Yes. Every one of them had a T-shirt with a letter on it that said, and it's spelled, "Say nice things about Detroit." And I have that picture of all of them standing on the corner with that costume on. And I had someone send me, I get so many emails and texts and communication from people. Somebody sent me a note, and I've talked to him. He said, I ran in that race. I was one of those letters with that IBM group, and that was what spurred me on to become a trainer. And he now trains disadvantaged and physically challenged athletes.
So really what I'm hearing you say is a lot of people who became runners really got their start with the Emily's runs in Detroit.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many, every day somebody stops me and says something in that regard. And I got a note today from a young lady. Her name is Jill Caruso. She's in the pictures that we have here as a wheelchair athlete. So this morning I got a note from her. Yeah, we were one of the first to have wheelchair athletes in our run. We called it the Ironsides Division. Some of the people that showed up with the wheelchairs were wheelchair athletes. Others were just people that were in wheelchairs, and I think even a couple had someone push them. But the whole idea was to celebrate that diversity. It was before ADA, the American Disabilities Act, so to have wheelchair participants. I love the sight of the big poster we have over here of all the wheelchairs. There must have been 30 of them, all the wheelchair athletes in front. You know, they were celebrated. They also would get into the conga lines. I remember Jimbo, who was a wheelchair athlete. You remember him? He would in his wheelchair, and everybody would dance behind him. And so there were so many things that are celebratory, as you mentioned it to me, that are memories that I do celebrate. I'm grateful for the opportunity to maybe have a little part in that, but really it was the people that showed up that made the Emily Detroit runs what they were.